John Fetterman has been rushed to the hospital, but Team Fetterman said this has nothing to do with his stroke. And AOC is once again the victim of threatening terrorism, fearing for her life, just by having to sit next to someone in the United States House of Representatives.
Did you feel safe sitting there with him?
I think it's uncomfortable serving with people who engage in what many experts deem stochastic terrorism, which is the incitement of violence using digital means and large platforms, so that individual themselves may not be the one that's wielding a weapon. But I have had to ride, as has Representative Omar, consistently had to ride in 20,000-pound armored vehicles, engaging in some of the most gruesome threats that you can imagine that were incited by Republican members. This is not just about a tweet. It is about what life looks like and the marshaling of hundreds, thousands, if not millions of people into doing something. And Donald Trump knows that very well, and he used his rallies very strategically in order to engage in political intimidation of what he deemed his political enemy.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders was absolutely right in her response to the State of the Union. As we move forward, it's no longer a choice between left and right. It's a choice of sane versus insane.
Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth.
John Fetterman, the newly minted senator from the Keystone State of Pennsylvania, was elected despite disclosing to the voters that he'd had a stroke, and the stroke left him with an inability to actually communicate with people, that he can't process the audio that he hears from people, and things have to be put out onto a teleprompter so that he can read it, think about it, and then give somewhat of a response. This became an issue. We were assured by Team Fetterman this is not a problem and you can't discriminate against somebody that has a disability. That was the way they spun it, and he got elected. Well, he has now been rushed to the hospital being, quote, lightheaded, which Team Fetterman says this has nothing to do with his stroke. Now, let me just pause right here. As a fellow human being, as a pastor, as a Christian, I don't want to see anybody have to suffer this way. I understand this has got to be hard on his family, and we certainly wish them the very best. And we did say, despite his political ideology, which we'd be completely opposed to, that rather than focus on running for the Senate, what he ought to do is take a year or two and work on himself, work on his health, get strong, get healthy. We had doctors kind of telling us he'll be okay, even though we were never allowed to see an actual full-blown physical or health report on him. Now, is this the direct result of the stroke that he's had? We don't know. Could be from the medication that he's on, obviously taking blood thinners. Once you've had a stroke, you don't want to have blood clots. That could certainly make you lightheaded, especially if you took more than you were supposed to. It could be that. It could be something else. It could be a lot more. But nonetheless, this is on the people of Pennsylvania. This is on Fetterman's family. These Democrats, including the Biden family, that put out individuals to run who are obviously physically, mentally impaired. You are putting them literally in physical harm's way of themselves. And some of you American voters, what are you thinking? And again, okay, you didn't like Dr. Oz, then abstain your vote. But to put a man in who, again, this is not about piling onto somebody who's, quote, sick. We're not saying that somebody that's handicapped can't serve. But he had just had a stroke, and it doesn't take a few weeks. It takes months and years to recover and feel like yourself again, or like you can function again. And John Fetterman was certainly not in that position. Well wishes going out to him. We wish him a speedy recovery. But this is going to be a problem moving forward.
Did you feel safe sitting there with him?
I think it's uncomfortable serving with people who engage in what many experts deem stochastic terrorism, which is the incitement of violence in a which is an incitement of violence using digital means and large platforms so that individual themselves may not be the one that's wielding a weapon. But I have had to ride, as has Representative Omar, consistently had to ride in 20,000-pound armored vehicles, engaging in some of the most gruesome threats that you can imagine that were incited by Republican members. This is not just about a tweet. It is about what life looks like and the marshaling of hundreds, thousands, if not millions of people into doing something. And Donald Trump knows that very well. And he used his rallies very strategically in order to engage in political intimidation of what he deemed his political enemy.
Yes, AOC, introducing us to a brand new vocabulary word, boys and girls. I can't even say it with a straight face. Stochastic terrorism. Sounds to me like sarcasm to me. But if you look it up, it's a brand new Wicca word, and it basically means that you are threatening without threatening, and then somebody else reads your threat and they act on it, but it was your fault. And so AOC, having an issue with this Republican congressman who tweeted out a meme months and months ago of an animated him and her getting into it. And, I feel so threatened. I feel so violated. Well, she had a conversation with him during the process of electing Kevin McCarthy Speaker of the House. And CNN reporter wanted to know, this is a man who tweeted out, basically a violent meme about you. It was parody. What was it like for you? Oh, it's harrowing and traumatic. And, she's always the victim. She was the victim on January the 6th. She's always a victim. And these Democrats are constantly talking about the things that Republicans say that are going to get them all killed. But it's actually Republicans who are in danger. It was Steve Scalise who was shot by a deranged Bernie supporter getting ready to play a congressional game of softball, and they were having practice. And the Republicans didn't come out and blame Bernie Sanders that some nut job follower shot at one of their own and wounded him, almost killed him. President Obama Biden had something rather interesting to say in his disjointed State of the Union regarding January 6th.
The last few years, our democracy has been threatened and attacked, put at risk, put to the test in this very room on January the 6th. And then just a few months ago, an unhinged big lie, assailant unleashed a political violence at the home of the then Speaker of the House of Representatives, using the very same language the insurrectionists used as they stalked these halls and chanted on January 6th. Here tonight in this chamber is a man who bears the scars of that brutal attack, but is as tough and as strong, as resilient as they get. My friend Paul Pelosi.
We know how desperately they want to make this another solemn occasion, like, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor or what happened on 9/11. The reality is, the Capitol Police opened the doors, welcomed those people in, even posed for selfies and pictures with them, and nobody got killed except a lone Trump supporter, and she was unarmed and a veteran. But they want to make this out that they're these insurrectionists that are egged on by Donald Trump. And he made the comparison that that's what happened to Paul Pelosi. May I remind you, the guy that attacked Paul Pelosi was some nudist hippie living in a van who is a diehard ideological progressive leftist. He's not exactly a MAGA hat-wearing Trump Republican. In the state of New Jersey, in the past week, 2 GOP councilmen have been killed. One happening just hours ago. Russell Heller, age 51, shot dead in his car. Happens to be a council member in the state of New Jersey. And last week, a female Republican, Eunice, and I really don't want to butcher her last name, we'll say Dumfour, was shot and killed. That's 2 Republicans shot and killed. Paul Pelosi attacked with a hammer by a deranged leftist. And if we're going to talk about stochastic terrorism, what about things Mad Maxine Waters has said through the years?
You'll see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station. You get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
What should protesters do?
Well, we got to stay on the street. And we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational.
Remember when Ted Cruz and his family, as a result of comments like this from Mad Max, Ted Cruz and his family had to leave a restaurant? Remember Mitch McConnell, and I am certainly no Mitch McConnell fan, had a lunatic leftist walk up to him at a restaurant, throw his food on the floor, and physically threaten him, and they followed him out to the car, and people follow with their cell phone cameras, get out, get out, get out. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who before she became governor of the great state of Arkansas, still working for President Trump as the press secretary, was told by the waitstaff of a restaurant in Washington, D.C., she was not welcome there and to get out. And the patrons applauded as Sarah and her family left. Who are the people that incite riots? Who are the people that egg on the mostly peaceful protests that end up with large swaths of city blocks and businesses being burned to the ground? If there is stochastic terrorism out there, it comes from the left. But this is the environment in which we find ourselves in. And again, AOC, this narcissist that everything is always about her, and she's always afraid. And yet, in reality, she herself is actually a crybaby. A crybaby. What's a crybaby, Pastor Marty? A crybaby is somebody who has, as they're screaming, I'm a victim, they're the ones pushing and punching and creating a problem. This double standard between the wokeism of the left and the double standard hypocrisy of the left, this is why the American people are turning away in droves from the liberals and the Democrats. It's not any more complicated than that. Sarah Huckabee was absolutely right. These people are just flat crazy. And haven't we all just about had our fill of crazy?
Sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.